When I was 4, my babysitter brought over a VHS tape with what I considered to be, at the time, a strange-looking cartoon that has haunted me for years. I remember a little girl dancing around a clothing line while she was hanging laundry, singing about how she was once a cat, but her friend, a little unicorn, had turned her into a human. A man leered at her from the bushes, and ominous music played in the background. He eventually took her back to his castle, got her inebriated, and then carried her to his bedroom. Fortunately, her little unicorn friend saved her before anything worse happened. And that was my introduction to the medium that is anime. I described that scene to Google a little while back, and I found out that what I had watched was called The Fantastic Adventures of Unico. And it turns out there are legions of other millennials and Gen Xers who were both unsettled and fascinated by the movie. In America, anime used to be thought of by many people as those weird cartoons that the kid who picked his nose watched, but today, it's more popular than ever. So what changed? And why are so many Americans watching anime these days? Anime has been around for decades, but it gained traction in the States when Astro Boy was adapted for American audiences in 1963, with the help of Fred Ladd, who was in charge of localization, or, in other words, dubbing and editing the series so it would appeal to an English-speaking audience. Another reason that Ladd may have done such heavy censoring may have something to do with the fact that, as we've discussed before, animation was marketed towards children in the 1960s in America. But in Japan, the target audience was much broader. Ladd was onto something, though. His efforts resulted in Astro Boy being wildly popular in the States, resulting in a massive rise of anime adaptations, two of which, Kimba the White Lion and Gigantor, definitely inspired Disney and Warner Brothers' later films, The Lion King and The Iron Giant, respectively. However, the popularity of Astro Boy declined after just a year, mostly because of increasing demand for color TV, and that show was still in black and white. It's also been speculated that it became too violent and depressing for American audiences, even after localization. And then, there was Speed Racer. When the show first premiered in 1967, much like Astro Boy, the violence was toned down from the original Japanese version and the episodes were rewritten and dubbed. And while Speed Racer was a major success, it was also known for its less than stellar character design, repetitive use of animation sequences, long sequences without movement, and the goofy as shit English dub. The voice actors sped through the lines at Mach 5, so they would fit the mouth flaps of the original Japanese lines. And that resulted in scenes like,
Pops, no matter what you say, I'm going to continue being a professional racer.
That's no way to talk to your own father. I forbid you to race right now, and that's final.
Then I'm sorry, Pops. You give me no choice but to run away from home. Goodbye, Pops.
Rex, don't be a fool. All I'm asking is that you wait a few more years until you've gained experience. All right, if you feel that way, then stay away.
So while this adaptation did help introduce anime to an American audience, it also defined the public perception of anime for generations, and in the 70s, the craze died down. And then, in the following decade, when VHS copies that were independently subtitled by fans entered the scene, and shows like Robotech, Voltron, and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and Akira all made their debuts, things started to change. These shows and films all experienced significantly less localization, and they were also not really aimed specifically at children, Akira being the most notably dark and violent. So much so, it's often cited as what changed the US view on not only anime, but animation as a whole. Akira played a significant part in paving the way for the 90s boom that included Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, Gundam Wing, and Pokémon. Anime was a lucrative business model because it was so affordable to rewrite, dub, and edit for American television, in part due to an aggressively competitive market for creatives in the US. So by 1998, anime was popular enough for 5-year-old Cartoon Network to include Dragon Ball Z in its new late-night television programming block, Toonami, which ended up being surprisingly popular, and introduced anime to the mainstream at an unprecedented scale. And when I say unprecedented, I mean unprecedented. Dragon Ball Z is responsible for 7 of the 20 highest viewed broadcasts in the history of Cartoon Network. And on the feature film side, movies like Ghost in the Shell would inspire and influence major productions like The Matrix in 1999. And just 2 years later, Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away would be the first anime film to win an Academy Award. By the mid-2000s, anime had cemented its place in American culture. Anime's influence can be seen in multiple successful American productions, like Frankenstein Jr., Tailspin, Gargoyles, The Powerpuff Girls, The Animatrix, Kim Possible, Batman the Animated Series, Teen Titans, The Boondocks, Avatar The Last Airbender, and Puss in Boots, just to name a few. Today, anime is only more universally appealing than it's ever been. The intricate details and unique stories often set it apart from Western animation, and anime continues to captivate even the most seasoned of viewers. Anime is also not limited to any one genre, whether it's comedy, fantasy, action, romance, or any of the other dozens of subcategories. There is truly something for everyone. And if we're being brutally honest, the vast majority of American animation has historically been mostly predictable, repetitive, and safe. Successful shows that step outside of the highly conservative monoculture in the US are the exception and not the rule, since broad appeal means more money, and, as we know, American entertainment is a business. Revenue is the first priority, not art. Anime, on the other hand, is highly experimental, uncensored, incredibly detailed, and unique. It makes sense that as American animation continues to be canceled, our anime consumption continues to increase. And with the thoughtful care for the viewers in the form of series consistency, longevity, merchandise, and conventions, it's easy to see why there is such a dedicated and rabid fan base. But what's truly unique about the past decade or so is how accessible anime has become. A large reason being the existence of specialty streaming services like Crunchyroll. That being said, even Netflix, Hulu, and HBO have expanded their offerings, with movie adaptations of series like Demon Slayer, revivals of older series like Trigun and Cowboy Bebop, for better or for worse, and with the constant churning out of new titles by both American and Japanese production companies, it's safe to say that anime is here to stay. And if projections are to be believed, it's only going to attract more viewers. So lean in forward to the edge of your seat, put on your Hidden Leaf Village headband, and brace yourself for the constantly evolving anime in America.